Buongiorno, buongiorno.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for your invitation. It gives me great pleasure to open this very timely event focusing on building a more resilient Europe in an uncertain world. In this sense, the report of the European Commission of September 2020 is very important because it illustrates the reasons why strategic foresight should be used in the EU policy-making process and introduces a comprehensive idea of EU resilience. I'm very happy to see this. After years in which only growth has been talked about, we're also considering social, green, and digital factors. We want a more equitable and climate-neutral world and greater control and sovereignty in the digital realm. We have lived through extraordinary events this year, which have certainly put our resilience to test in many ways. As the COVID pandemic invaded and upturned our lives, our homes, our offices, from one day to the next. We have had to find very creative solutions to ensure that democracy did not stop functioning, as we could not afford that luxury. Our citizens and our businesses, legitimately so, expect us to rise to the challenge and address their very real concerns. Every day, this deadly virus created uncertainty and a fear for survival, and our societies responded in different ways. So even in times of crisis, or perhaps especially in times of crisis, democracy cannot grind to a halt. So how did we as a parliament and the other institutions respond? Firstly, we amended our rules because our rules didn't allow us to deal with the crisis. So we needed rules to ensure that it could remain operational, whilst at the same time seeking to safeguard the health and safety of members and staff. And this involved introducing new procedures in rapid time, and in particular, remote voting procedures, which was hugely challenging, but absolutely vital to enable us to continue voting and legislating and scrutinizing the decisions that were being taken, many of which will have a significant impact in years to come. Parliaments around the world were looking to us as a model on how to do this. In order not to let resources go to waste, we thought about the most vulnerable categories within our populations. And we made decisions which were proportionate to the crisis. We welcomed homeless women in our premises and served meals to those in need, because the institutions cannot watch elsewhere. They must give their contribution too. Secondly, on the substance, we had to rapidly respond to the crisis with answers and policies that previously would have been taboo, rethinking how we previously did things from an economic, political, and democratic point of view. We had to take major long-term decisions, and yet our answers had to be immediate. This, however, led us to reimagine the basics of the European Union and its future direction. It therefore became a sort of transformative moment, enabling us to imagine a more sustainable model of development, with environmental, social justice at its core. We have had very lively debates within the Parliament. And my friend, Commissioner, followed all the debates here within the Parliament step by step. And these topics were considered fundamental by everyone. They were the essence of democracy, and as a result, this enabled us to reach a broad consensus around the most appropriate solutions. This deliberative process is in part what gave birth to the Recovery Fund, where previously unthinkable resources were earmarked to deal with the health and economic consequences of the pandemic in the short, but also the medium term. At the beginning of the crisis, we said we cannot go backwards. We need to do something different compared to the past, especially those models that we have been using the last 10 years. Therefore, we followed the path that we had agreed, the Green Deal, environmental and social sustainability suggested by the Commission. And in parallel, we worked hard. We negotiated the next multi-annual financial framework, which takes us to 2028. So we look forward beyond the midterm. So these negotiations are over now. They lasted long, but now they're over. And we hope now that the Council rapidly will find a solution. I was happy that after so many months of often quite tough and intense negotiations, last week we managed to reach a deal for a historic package that includes new elements, such as the rule of law and own resources. This will enable us to be more autonomous and forward-looking. And, of course, we'll base ourselves on our values. The Parliament, for its part, prioritized key flagship programs, including both the health and research budgets. Our goal was to look ahead and make Europe future-proof for new challenges. The pandemic won't be the only challenge. There will be many other challenges. And of course, one has got to be ready. We have to be ready to take initiatives and to take up responsibilities. Of course, we decided to not leave to the next generation no means to deal with this crisis. What mattered for us was to make the Union more resilient and strong to look forward to face the future. It is no exaggeration to describe this deal between the Parliament and the Council as groundbreaking. The European Union will put on the market an unprecedented amount of bonds. We're writing history and paving the way for future generations to have more resources to invest in health and vaccines, cross-border student exchanges, research, digital and climate. For years, the issue of new own resources was a taboo, an impossible dream. Now it has become a reality. Europe is facing up to its present and its future, and ensuring that nobody is left behind. The fact that these own resources will be financed to a large extent by polluting industries underlines our commitment to building a greener Europe. The budget is a true expression of the EU standing firmly together to address collectively the issues facing our citizens. We've opened a new chapter in European integration. Support from the EU budget cannot be unconditional and goes hand in hand with the respect of the EU's values. Europe is much more than just economics, and what lies behind the budget are the fundamental principles of the EU on justice, freedom, and the rule of law, which have endured and proved their worth over time, because these principles allow us to stop abuses and will be very useful for us in the future. They show that we are listening to the concerns of our citizens. We're witnessing a seismic shift with much greater collective solidarity, which is a milestone for the future of the Union. And that will help the EU to become more resilient, sustainable, gender balanced, and inclusive. For this, we need to change our way of policy making and rely more on foresight and strategic thinking. And in this connection, I would like to congratulate with my friend, the Commission Vice President Šefčovič, for making important steps in this direction. As Parliament, we have always supported this approach, and I'm sure that we'll continue and even reinforce our collaboration in building a common vision for the EU to look forward. We also need to look beyond the EU, and we have to be strong. But we are only as strong as our ability to help the weakest, and not just those within our borders. We should not forget our responsibilities to the wider world. As Europe thrives when we live in a more peaceful world, we need to become a stronger global player. The only way to do so is through promoting the rules-based order, dialogue, cooperation, multilateralism, and fundamental freedoms. I welcome, therefore, the increase in money allocated to development, as the EU needs to show global leadership in this area. Moreover, this global pandemic underscored how vital international cooperation is in anticipating and tackling 21st century challenges, which are complex and interconnected, including demographics, the rise of authoritarianism, connectivity, and migration. They're all challenges we need to deal with a Europe which must be more determined and can be more determined and more assertive. If we can grow, we can lead processes and assume its responsibilities. As we have seen, the world is uncertain. And as I said before, it doesn't wait patiently for us at the door. It goes fast. That said, we have the power and the possibility to shape our future. And the choices of the past have nothing inevitable about them. It is up to us to decide to pursue a better path, a more inclusive and sustainable one. Engaging in foresight and analyzing global trends within our institutions is not an academic exercise, but rather an imperative in order to better equip ourselves. As President Abraham Lincoln said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. But the reform of the EU doesn't stop here, and it must not fall into the trap of complacency. If anything, we're only at the beginning. If anything, the momentum this year has shown us what is possible when there is a willingness to take bold decisions for future generations. I think we can draw many lessons from the events of this year, which can serve to better cope with the future, because I'm sure that we'll continue, even do better. We need solid fundamental foundations supported by our values in order to face any storm. We need to look not only to tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow. And this leads me to another subject, which is one of the priorities of my term, of our legislature. We said so much during this year, immediately after the elections. It is so necessary today to think hard about the future of Europe, and the conference on the future of Europe can be an extraordinary, much-needed opportunity. We must be ready to rethink our way of doing things. We have to question the methods of the past. We must make sure that the Union has got the ability to work in a more effective way. And of course, we must show what are the tools which are adequate to do so. But we haven't got a great deal of time. That's why I'm convinced that there's never been a moment such as this one to begin the work on the conference on the future of the Union. I think we need to be strategic and visionary in our thinking, because it's important for everyone to realize what the challenges are and the tools we need for dealing with them. The process of construction for Europe cannot be taken for granted. It's not done once and for all. Europe will be strong and will be pluralistic with open societies if we can understand reality and show the path ahead. Thank you very much.